Okay, Rogers.
Thank you. Very, very interesting, and it's something that not everyone will have heard of. But all that you said there absolutely resonated with me, and I think that's really powerful. The the thing about having every type of energy there, free energy, hydrogen fuel that, as you said, burns cleanly, that produces water vapor. So it's, non-polluting. It works with the planet. It's limitless, but also the variety side of it as well. And I think that's really aspirational, also to be referring to things that come from they're creeping into this paradigm, but they're not really of this paradigm yet. And yeah, having that kind of stuff for a community would be, wow, aspirational. And I think it's, that's bang on. That's exactly the kind of thing that would get me, and I think a lot of other people, really interested and excited in that. So thank you for sharing that. I think that's perfect as an aspiration. In an ideal world, we'd have this, because then the next step becomes much easier. Okay, here we are at the moment. How do we get it? So thank you. Has anyone else got anything to chip in on that point, or another thing that they want to pick up on at the moment?
So Mike, the idea here is, so at this point we're in a brainstorming type of whirlwind flow, conversation flow, right? It's getting the energy to kind of add on, like a yes and type of thing, and keep filling it. It's like an imaginative space, because we're not making decisions. We're just kind of like daydreaming on a community, right?
Could be imaginative. It might be experiential, but it should be inspiring. Back to that, in an ideal world, this looks like this. So for another example, say the water coming out of our community is as clean or cleaner than the water that goes into the community. So that there's another, I think very, very practical thing that we can get, but which is absolutely inspirational, and talks about our values for each other and the planet, and how we intend to move and support with Mother Nature.
So just playing the role of the producer for a second here, the Hawaiians actually have a system for that. Their irrigation system was, they would first of all make sure that you return the water to the waterway. So you never had an irrigation system that just went into like a ditch or something, or some random pond and started to stink. It always has to return back to the public water. And also that, keeping it clean as it goes through your field. It's each farmer's kuleana, their responsibility. One thing that the Hawaiians realize is that the water cycle is very key to the quality of your water. So the water comes off the ocean or whatever body of water is nearest by, it goes up towards the sun as the heat draws it into the air. When it comes down, when it comes into a forest watershed, that is actually the best for people. So we can't, human beings can do a lot, but we can't do a lot of things better than nature. And one of the things we can't do better than nature is clean water. So the forest and the minerals and the stones aerate and work on the water. The microorganisms work on the water. And as long as we keep the forest beneficial, it does that job better than any human system could possibly do it. It's been, so it's amazing that you say that, because I think that that's the best possible intention, and we really want to realize that what we are going to be doing is to be serving the forests and serving the health of the forest, and what that ultimately means is like hygiene. Like, don't shit next to the water. Like, don't use water to wash poop. Like, I think these are things where people are just like, oh, it never occurred to me. I just thought you spray with Lysol or something. We can't do that anymore. So you have to find another relationship to biology.
And I think, maybe to zoom right out on that, the overall theme there is work with nature and support nature and value nature within our community. And I think that's another thing that I'd be actually elevating to the very top level of what we're dealing with, which is the intention. The things that you could weave into the intention from what you've been covering so far is that we respect our own and other people's energy field. We strive to know ourselves and other people. We value all people, and that makes us respectful of other people. And we value and respect and work with nature. So those are the kind of things that I would be tempted to put right into the heart of the whole thing, as a series of, if you like, universal values, which that's our guiding star for the community, and that will always help us to come up with these, in an ideal world, best solutions for whatever we're dealing with, basically, because our values are then they ground into the vision and exactly how we're going to do this, how we're going to work with nature when we build our buildings and deal with our water, etc.
Love it. So this is really cool. So for time reasons, I will have to go after a while. So because I'm traveling and I'm here.
I'm exhausted, so I'm not attached to any.
I'm getting how the energy circle works. Would you like to? And I really want to take a time off to do that, like plan out the community with the energy circle. I think it's very effective. Like I could see how this is is snowballing and could snowball. And if we record these, if we take it for real, like right now we're practicing, and we record these results, we can really come up with a cohesive, universal agreement that we're all understanding what the vision is. And then we can get to the next steps after that, of course. But this is of course what I've done in my own mind years and years ago, and everyone else probably has too. And then this is a good process, I think, to bring us together.
Great. Tiana, I think, was waving. Tiana, do you have something you want to chip in?
Yeah, I want to share some observations that I'm having about the way that I create, and what I'm observing within myself is that I don't feel that I know how to create. I'm just learning how to co-create with people in a brainstorming type, because when I create, I don't come from a mental level. And so I feel that that's where my disconnect is and where I get lost, because I'm very energetic. And so when I'm creating something, I go to the spirit and the space, and I have no idea what it's supposed to look like, but I access the place where the intention is and the seed, and what the mother, usually if I'm building something on the earth or creating something with the earth or a space, I ask the space, the earth, what it needs from me. And then I set my intention for the creation of whatever is in the greatest and highest good. And then I let the universe guide my actions and the creation of it, so that when it's created, I don't really know what it is going to be, but it is created in accordance with the divine plan or the divine creation. So I'm trying to learn how to maybe co-create with people. I don't know how this I mean, is this a personality type? I guess that's what I'm asking. I get lost in the brain stuff. Where does the way that if what I do is when I'm co-creating with someone, it's really on a kinesthetic level and the energy level and the synergy, that it's just that full body yes, 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 and a knowing and the clear cognizance of everything. Not necessarily for me a thought pattern of what it looks like. So how do you take that and synergize with a group that's actually putting detailed plans down? Does that make sense?
I think there's two parts to your question that I've observed anyway, Tiana. The first one was, is this a personality type? And the answer is, I don't know. The only person who's really qualified to say that is if you were to do, what I suggest is if you're going to do, typically they're called Myers-Briggs tests, MYERS hyphen BRIGGS, or career personality tests. And if you're going to do that, I would suggest that if you do free ones, I'd do at least 3. Because there's some crap ones out there and you can fit in the middle of 2 or more groups and stuff like that. And then the real calibration is, okay, now I've answered those sort of strange questions, which should be self-calibrating anyway, and now I'm going to read about what they say about how I've answered these questions and what kind of personality type that leads to. And so the calibration is, if you read that and you go, wow, okay, yeah, how did they know that about me? Then I think you've got a valid test. So the best calibrator in the world for you is you. The second best calibrator is maybe to talk to some of the people who know you really well and say, this is what this says. What do you think about that? Here's my feelings about it. And then maybe have a look at the weaknesses or the opportunities for growth, etc. The next one is that, if we really zoom out and we look at all of the different areas for a community, and we use that sort of Myers-Briggs as a lens for viewing, I've mentioned that, in fact, it's all a fractal. So 2/3 of the people tend to be extroverted, which is they get their energy from interacting with other people. 1/3 tend to get it from within. 2/3 tend to be practical, pragmatic, hands-on, kinesthetic kind of people, and they process information in that way as well. And 1/3 tend to be more patterns and pictures, imagination, intuition, and stuff like that. So that's about how we process information. 2/3 of men tend to make their decisions on theories and principles, and 2/3 of women tend to make their decisions on feelings and emotions. So you've got a 1/3 minority group in both of the sexes, and then 2/3 of people tend to be the free spirit, excitement seeker, live for today kind of people, and 1/3 tend to be the security, structure, planning, organization people. How does that work in the scope of a society, if you like? What happens is then that the people who really like doing things with their hands and stuff like that, that's where they gravitate to. This kind of stuff, talking about how we put a community together and the plans and the visioning and stuff like that, to them that's not very practical and pragmatic, and they feel much more comfortable creating with their hands, making things, cooking, growing, woodworking, crafting, working with children or things like that. And what happens then is, or what should happen is that, although, there's some interest there, where's my heart? Where's my energy going? It goes into the places that I I excel at, and I love, and I know that I'm good at, and I can create with, and I can master a craft with, for example. So what happens then is you tend to end up with a team with overlap but doing different things, and that's the ideal situation. And then the aim is that they throw the ball to each other. Hey, I need some support over here with the digging. Cool, I'm on my way. Okay, now I've got to do some planning and organizing stuff. Cool, I don't like that. See you later. I'm going to carry on with this stuff. So this is where the personal value and the collective value of our varying gifts should come into it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely it does. And question would be, as a group facilitator and as somebody that's organizing teams and being in a leadership role, is it the responsibility for the leader to understand? What I'm trying to do is understand how other people create, and just as you're explaining, and where they're coming from, so that is it the responsibility of the facilitator to be conscious of all of the different ways that people create so that they can identify it? Or is it the responsibility of the person joining the group to know enough about who they are and how they create to voice it to the group?
If I can just
Very.
speak to that, sorry. If I could just speak to that, Tiana. So I think what you're handling here are two different dilemmas that you're conflating with each other. And the first one is like, what is your personal relating style? And the second one is, what is everyone else's? So I haven't done a test on you or something, but you seem to be like more in the framework I mentioned, a performer type. So the reason you're concerned about everyone else's way of relating and how they think is so that you can communicate to them effectively. And the way you're not really attached to your own particular style or intention is because that's our function. Is, you know, we deliver the message in a way that people can understand. And the danger of that role is to go too far and say like, oh, I'm going to go all the way, like totally have no ego, just make sure this person understands that they're loved or that they're safe, or to tell them what they need to hear for their greatest healing. Well, you know, the ego is here to protect our body, to protect us. And so, there's times when it's not really wise to just blow past that boundary and say, okay, I'm gonna make that touchdown. I'm gonna make sure that this communication happens. So this is a very important distinction to be making. What are you and what are others? Because yes, it is probably your role to be like integrating people and like creating like a common understanding of reality with people, but you also have to know yourself and your own limitations before you do that, because if you don't, you can get hurt. So this is just my 2 cents.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I think you put that brilliantly, and I think my reflection on that is the more we're aware of our own strengths and weaknesses, especially the weaknesses, the more respectful we can be of other people's capacities, and the more we can be encouraged to trust each other and to to pass the ball to each other. And I think the ultimate answer is, everyone's got their own personal style, their characteristics, their strengths. Every strength is a weakness or has a weakness. You could say that a weakness is a strength overdone. Equally, every thing that we perceive as a weakness has a strong point to it as well. So how we place ourselves in a particular context is really important. And I don't think there's any hard and fast rules. The main thing is to realize that I don't have your knowledge, your experience, your way of looking at things. The same goes for everyone else here. And on that basis, I don't know. I need to be open and willing to learn, and then reflect on what's said within myself as much as anything else, and consider then how does that impact the way I've done things in the past. Should I be doing the same stuff, or should I be working slightly differently with yourself and with Tiana and with Josh, for example, because I'm going to learn more that way. So there's no canned solutions, basically, and it's a really hard job, being in that role of trying to contribute to the energy. In some ways, you want to set some boundaries and steer things a little bit, but you've got to also know the time to step back and let the flow go, and not worry too much about controlling things. And that's delicate. There's a real subtlety and delicacy here with regards to the personal and the group, and I guess we just need to try and work with the intention to let a group act as a flower, if you like, and blossom. Josh?
Yeah, I want to add maybe a little bit to that also. I think what and I could be wrong. Just what I heard from what you said, Tiana, is maybe there's a process, and I think this is something we all do, is I do for sure, where I do go in and I check in and I get my vision. Mine tend to last years. Like if they change, I'll know it, and I do adopt information into my vision at any moment. But I have an overarching intention that I have as a why behind what I do. And I've already done my meditation on that. And I go, okay, this is where I'm going. So it's like, it's set. So I know where I'm going. And as I pick up pieces along the way, I put them into the place with my brain. Okay. Going towards that path. And for me, it's actually it's even more specific. I start with the vision, like we're doing now, the visioning circle, where I get the perfect scenario and I work my way backwards, back to the next steps. So even more specifically, I work for the vision, I outline it, and I do next steps to each piece of the outline. Okay. And I make sure that it all comes together. So this is all how we process. And so for you, Tiana, you have a different way of doing it, but there's still that process of visioning in that we all do. And so maybe, just maybe, one of your concerns might be co-creating with people, and having to maybe do a sacrifice or a bending to work with someone when you have direct guidance from the universe to do something else. Is that close at all, or no? Tiana, you're on mute. I'll unmute.
Yes, that could be one instance. It's not all encompassing, but it could be an instance.
Piece of it. So, for that, oops, I muted myself. When we have these downloads, for me, mine happen to be farther in the future, but I do have some, actually, as time goes on, like recently, they're getting more and more like next steps. And so a lot of them for me, since I am a creator and I just spend a lot of time by myself, and I'm a whole systems designer, so I'm designing the systems and I'm giving presentations, I'm doing it all on my own. When I work with people, sometimes certain people could be difficult and some could be harder to work with. I can see these structures as helping us. In this specific one, we're visioning. So it's meant for visioning. And if you are, I don't know if Malia, you had an exact, for me, I don't see you as the performer. I see you as the other one, from what her for the doer or the producer.
The producer.
Yeah.
I have a very distributed personality, so I couldn't function within that framework when it's assigned like one role to each person. And that's why I had to like exit the group. But definitely see you as an inventor. I do have a lot of
Me
producer adaptations and
too.
qualities of
Yeah,
survival. Like, you know, you're talking about your visions of
totally.
the future, and I've seen your drawings, and
Totally.
it's very, very inventor. And I think that Mike is also quite a producer, but he also tends to think about what happened in the past and translate it into the present. And
Huh.
I have to say, he's very sattvic, gentle version of the idea of judge. I almost wouldn't even put the word judge, but more like a archivist or a historian, you know. And this is really good. I think we have a good combination.
That's so interesting because I see people differently. So it's really interesting because I mean, I think everyone sees me as an inventor for whatever reason, but I see Mike as more of an inventor too. And
Hmm.
I see Tiana more of a producer. I mean, just, I guess to ask you guys, what do you guys see yourselves as in those four? And I also, by the way, I do take every hat at any moment, but mostly the one I like is that. Tiana.
Well, my team is always mad at me because I'm not on time, because I can't keep a commitment, because I just go with the flow constantly.
God, Malia, why you do that?
That's I'm a performer, and I'm only in the now. There's only now and now again, now again, now again. Yeah, it's a occupational hazard. Hmm.
Tiana, yeah.
Um, I have two thoughts because I'm like, there is a way to combat that, Milian. To set the intention that you'll be on time is all that it could take. Then your spirit will get you
Well,
there.
it will, but right now I'm caught up in walking a prescribed path that I've agreed to before I was born. And so that takes priority over anything. And my team is very understanding and forgiving, but it does throw them off pretty hard. The priority is not to be on time with the clock. You know, the clock was invented by some nice Benedictine monks, like in the 15th century or something like that. But the people knew how to get things done before there was a clock.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a different path that I'm walking. It's a different priority than just being on time. But I agree with you.
I was at a flow center where we had a vague idea of our commitments, but yeah, we didn't go by the clock, and everything just happened when it was supposed to. There's an art to that too. It's just, but yeah, it's just don't commit to something at a time. But if you do commit to a time, then sometimes just depends. Like if you have to do a speech, but you're not ready, it's like sometimes you just have to. Okay, I'm going to put these emotions to the side. I'm going to do the speech. I'm not fully ready, but everyone's waiting. There's I planned it. There's 100,000 people or whatever, however many. What I'm saying, like, you just got to sometimes kind of do the best you can. Anyhow, Tiana?
Yeah, I just have one more thing I kind of want to speak about into the field in terms of our ascension process and how I'm feeling that as we're moving forward into our multidimensional beingness, and these labels I feel have been something that we've used in the past, and that we really are all of each one of these things. We may have a dominant trait, which it's good to know about ourselves, but how much time do we continue to define those, and is that continuing to put us into a box of personality instead of, I mean, is anybody observing that in their own interactions about really tapping into the oneness of us all and the multi-dimensional beings that we all are? I know with me, I'm trying, doing a lot of organizational work and trying to label this for the matrix, who people's roles, and all these different systems, putting all these labels on, how we're separate, how we're apart. It's quite intense. So I'm just kind of, wanted to speak that into the field, and how if is that being addressed in the new ways that we co-create together.
Can I speak to that?
Mm-hmm.
I see it. I definitely see both ways. I see both ways. So I see sometimes, you're speaking into the structure, like there is a structure, and you're also speaking into a lot of structure that's been made for specific reasons. We're bringing in other, personality tests and things that were made for specific reasons that may or may not apply. So I do see it as like astrology, for instance. Hey, this is who I am, and that doesn't mean I'm always like that. Like if I go to a party, I might act one way, and then I go to a different set of party where there's a whole different vibe. I might actually be able to act more that way, and then another one, and I am able to be more like that way, right? Like we can wear many different hats. We can be many different. We can play many different roles. Just because something says this is your role or this is your thing doesn't mean we can't play a ton of different roles. It's like improv, right? So we may be good at a few roles. And so there is an art to working with our strengths. And so when we come together with a project, and this is where the new paradigm comes in, is we're working on projects, so they're short-term projects. So we are gathering together and filling those roles needed. And we can of course always flow and help each other and pull people in when someone's missing and whatnot, and try to be as lenient as we can. If someone's just not coming through, then maybe we do need to fill that role. But really once that project ends, we flow into another project. And we switch roles. Those roles become different. And so that's sort of the new paradigm. And this is I see this, the different personality things as an experiment, and for me, it's fun. And if someone doesn't see it as fun, they definitely wouldn't want to play. They wouldn't want to play that game.
Yeah.
Okay, Malia.
Well, I think I want to back up what you said, and also to say, you have to take what feels good and leave what feels bad. You're the judge of that. And so I said before, I had to leave the group that was trying to define me according to one of these character types, because I feel like I do cycle through them. But also, I think that sometimes you do end up committing to one or the other because of what you've decided your path is. So, the more defined and honed in on your path you become, the easier it is to say, oh yeah, I'm this or I'm that. And it's not bad, but it's also not necessary if you're not ready to do that. So for me, it's kind of like, if you're still in a nebulous place, or if you've gone into a nebulous place with it and you don't feel like engaging with that, that's great. But it is kind of useful to make distinctions so that we can decide, how we're going to relate to each other. We're not just blobs. Like, we do have contingencies of our background and our worldview and our language and all these different things that come with our incarnate bodies and ourselves. So it's like, yeah, you can't be like, oh, I'm Tiana. I'm not Tiana. I'm Malian. You know what I mean? Like, it would be kind of rude for me to be like, I'm you and I get to make all your decisions for you. We've come here in these costumes and we're here to play the roles and relate to each other well. Yeah.
Can I chip in on this as
Yeah.
well? I think we're bridging paradigms, and the old paradigm, which is still so pervasive, is very polarized and very dualistic. And ultimately, we're not completely clear about what the new paradigm is because it's not here yet, but it's a process that will evolve. And I think we just need to bring some awareness into the fact that it's a journey. It's a journey for us. It's a journey for other people. It's just information, and we need to be, bring some discernment to information and how we observe and process information, because we can't do it for others. But there's another element, which is that we're trying to make a field of information and communication where everyone has a space. And we need to recognize that people are on different stages of their journey. They have different experiences. And on that basis, there needs to be a space that people can find themselves in. My personal responsibility is towards myself, how I observe, how I manage my information, and my responsibility to the group field is, apart from that, which is knowing myself and managing myself, making space for other people to find a comfortable place that they can pop into and contribute in a way that helps the overall field, but also gives them enjoyment of the journey of mastering themselves. So these tools, I think, have relevance at different parts of the journey, and we just need to be open to other people's experiences and where they are on the path. Try not to judge, try to support, try to be open, and focus on our own development, I think, and just the support of others.
Thank you, Mike. Yeah. And I think to go along with that, each one teach one is really amazing. When you get in these groups, if you have one person that's the only one that can do something and they leave, then you have to, everything stops. The whole momentum stops. And you have to find the right person to fill that role. So, being able to have everyone not only sharing DNA as what's the vision, but being able to sort of at least having two people on a team. If I'm the only one that can do something, being able to find someone else on the team that I can mentor in that area so that they also know. So in my absence, that can get done on the team. And if I leave more permanent, that they can fill in until that role gets filled, or they could teach it to someone else so that we don't get stuck, having to pay outside people and waste our time and train, or trying to, all that. I highly want to encourage you guys to continue. I do have to go. We can, I say we could do the listening circle next week, or we can do both, or whatever. If you guys are able to continue, I'll pass the hosting to you, Mike.
I'll tell you what, Josh, I think the way that we've been able to build up the confidence and the communication has had many aspects of the energy circle. It's like we made a natural transition into that, quite profound sharing between each other, and a very respectful and an interesting interaction we had off the back of that. So my feeling is we've got naturals for that. I don't think we need to do it, and I think, on reflection as well, in an ideal world, we'd have had more of a rich experience with the energy circle if we'd had more different types of people involved. Maybe about 8 or 10 would be perfect, in a circle. But my feeling is, what have we done? We've helped to clarify an intention and values. We've put some vision items down, so we've run through the exercise, and more importantly, we've learned about each other and our different communication styles, the strengths that everyone brings to the team, the differences, and the interesting things about those differences, and the respectful way that we can manage things. So my reckoning is we've done a listening circle.
I feel so too. Does everyone else feel like that?
I feel like we should pat ourselves on the back. We moved through a lot today, and it was really fun.
Yeah, we've that's been a good journey, hasn't it, today? Yeah, thank you, everyone. Thank you for your silence when you had silence to put in. Thank you for your sharing when you had sharing to put in. And thank you for, the listening and the communicating.
Well, thank you for being the person that you are and sharing it with us. We all appreciate it. I definitely appreciate it.
Mm-hmm. For next week,
Thank you.
I want to make a suggestion for next week. I suggest we pick up the momentum where we're at and just go straight into embodying this for at least for maybe a few more sessions. And we can maybe have the actual intention that we make, Mike, and have that be a focal point. And then I don't know if that works with this process or not, but if it does, then that would be great. And then the second one would be envisioning this community further with a detailed recording outline. Like I can be the recorder or something.
Awesome.
Cool, glad to. Thank you. And what I'll do is I've got these gifts from Malian regarding the the intentional elements, which they really resonated with me, and I'll cross fertilize them with what you've given me, Josh, and then we can all look at that and go, how's it feeling? Does that really
Perfect.
hit the spot?
Great,
Okay.
great. And lastly, so I was just going to say lastly, so we got the intention for next week. We can get into that later. We're still experimenting with this, so never mind. Sorry. Go ahead, Melanie. You're going to say something.
I just want to say aloha, everybody. I feel very connected. I feel very grateful. Thank you.
Back at you, sister.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of the day.
Okay. Bye, guys.
Okay.
Aloha.
Bye for now.
Right.
Bye.
Aloha. Bye.